Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's once again your favorite national arbiter, Chief Wales, the line. And we are here at the ACC Super Chess Championship, Super Zonal Chess Championship to be precise, which started from the 11th of April and it's going to be ending on the 16th of April, right here at the City Heights Luxury Hotel in Ikeja, Nigeria. And I'm opportunity to be at the venue live and direct today. And also with me is the one and only Lakute Oluwadurotemi, who is my co-analyst for this event. A special shout out to him, Mr. Lakute. How you doing?
Yes. Hello. It's good to be back on the show.
Yeah, and live and direct at the venue.
Yeah.
First things first. Let me talk about City at Luxury Hotel. Coming in, it was fantastic view. Getting into the hotel, it's about 6 to 7 floors, and elevator was just. We got in, we got ourselves settled. I actually went to the kitchen to eat at the restaurant. Apologies. Went to a restaurant to eat, and in fact, I didn't want to leave there on time. I felt like probably it's possible to just take a bed and just sleep there, after eating. And meal very decent. I was able to eat yam and potato for those that have not, and,
Fair.
and yeah, yes, it's yam, potato, and what is it called? Some fish sauce. Yes, so in fact, I'm so filled up right now, and I have to take a pet coke with it. And yeah, I am. But I don't think Lakute was important to eat at the moment because if you look at him, he looks like someone that has finished eating akpu before coming to the for this show. Are you the akpu kind of person, or you are the eba or amala kind of person? Which one?
No, just pizza.
Just pizza. Ah ah. Ekiti boy eating pizza. Okay, no problem. So the lives has changed. Now here we are going to talk about some interesting games. Some games have ended. We came here, we started very late a little bit, but we still have to do one or two recaps on some of the games. And of course, who is better to help us go through all these lines but Mr. Lakwitola to himself. So, your turn. We can go to the beginning and you can just show us exactly what happened between the game between FIDE Master Abdulrahman Abdulraheem versus Sulaiman Azumi Aisha. In this scenario, Azumi was white and Abdulrahman was black. Remember, Abdulrahman lost a very wonderful game yesterday again to Olisa Tennyson, and maybe fatigue because we were talking about him, allowing his king side to be ruptured, which it's very unlikely of him. It's unlike of him, but he came back stronger this morning, and let's see how the game unfolds. So, Mr. Lakute, over to you.
Yeah. So maybe after getting some good sleep yesterday, I think he played what looked to be a near perfect game. So we'll just check it out. C4, F5. So his intention is already clear. He wants to unbalance the position as early as possible. If he creates some imbalance in the position, he's probably will be able to outplay his lower rated opponent, maybe in a very strategic or tactical way. Okay, so let's see how the game plays out. D4, knight F6. So it's more like a dodge. Knight C3, E6, bishop b4, all very standard moves, takes. But I think after e3, I think more usual here is e4. I think that's the point of that. To me, seems to be the point of white's play to try to get in e4 as fast as possible. But okay, Madam Aisha Azumi played the move pawn to e3, keeping it solid, keeping our pawns on the dark squares, and trying to maybe bring the bishop here, the knight here, and just develop. So okay, bishop d3, pawn to d6. Okay, so black has the dark square bishop, so he's trying to, and the bishop pair, so he's trying to create some play on the dark squares, maybe with pawn to e5 or the pawn to c5 break, depending on which one is allowed or which one turns out to be favorable. Okay, queen to c2 and then knight to c6. So threatening knight b4 and also threatening to break in the center with pawn to e5. a3, and then the immediate pawn to e5 was played, comes as a pawn sacrifice. The pawn on f5 has been sacrificed, but I don't think it's ideal to take it, because if you take the pawn, for instance, you would notice that white has not even completed development at all. All his king is still in the center, and his pieces are on the back rank, right? And if it does open up the position, then the lead in development black has will start to show. So okay, pawn captures on e5, knight captures on e5, bishop captures on f5, bishop captures, queen captures. Now, white looks like he has won a pawn, but as you can see, it's not even ideal at all. Okay, white is counting on the fact that black can take this pawn because of queen e6 check, attacking this and attacking this. But this is what has happened. What we will see is that white is just too far behind in development. Just too far behind in development. You can't have your pieces on that developed and you are grabbing pawns and opening up the position. That is a recipe for disaster. And okay, Abdulrahman played the tactically beautiful move knight f3. There were other options, but I think this is good enough. Okay, the idea is that if white takes with the pawn or with the queen, then there is a discovered attack with bishop captures on f3 check, which is like which might be lights out. So the computer also points out the fantastic move bishop to h4, which is also very obvious. You know, it's a discovered attack on the queen. So probably there will have to be a check, and then the king would move to f8. So the combined threat of knight f3 and it's going to be very difficult to protect this pawn. For example, knight f3, it's possible to capture this pawn, and it's possible to capture this knight, and it's good, but maybe just knight here, check, would also cause a lot of pain to to white. For example, I don't know where the king is going to move to actually, and then some moves like knight here already looks very bad. Rook here, for instance, you can play rook here. I think the queen should be able to escape. The knight should be able to escape this prison, because it's going to be difficult to find a good square for the queen. Where would the queen go to?
Queen f5.
Okay, queen f5 is maybe possible to play pawn to g. Is it possible to play pawn to g6? Or that's too much.
Queen f5 maybe okay. Pawn to g6 is not too much because the queen now needs to dash down to maybe d3, allowing your knight now easily move to allowing the knight to easily move to g4. Yeah.
All right. So maybe something like this is good enough for black. Okay, but that was an option. The move played knight f3. Okay, ignore. We're going to ignore all this.
Okay, when you
yeah.
when you were calculating knight takes f2, did you also consider knight b2 in that variation that you were calculating?
Yeah, it's also possible. I think it's after bishop h4,
yeah.
check, king e6. This is attack. So let's say knight f3. So it's possible to it's possible to play knight check.
The king moves up. The knight beats knight.
Yeah, knight b2.
Does it make any sense?
Yes, it does. But okay, it's easy for the knight to escape. For example, after knight captures, if the rook goes to a square like rook b1.
No, why is it going to rook b1 immediately?
Attacking the rook.
Yes, and that looks like a trapped trapped queen.
Yeah, it's not so easy to.
I mean, trapped knight. Sorry.
It's not so easy to extract.
So knight b2 will be wrong. So your knight f2 is better.
Okay, so queen captures f5, knight to f3. This is a good move. You know, ignore the computer. This means that white will not be able to castle. king e2 was played.
Hold on, hold on. Now, no, you said something right now. You said we should ignore the computer. Can you please explain why we should ignore the computer in this kind of scenario?
Well, so the computer was pointing out that bishop h4 is a much stronger move, which is true. However, the knight f3 is practical and also very strong, and
Okay.
gives black the advantage. Black, the white king cannot castle. Is there is, and you are making use of your lead in development. The main point is the black king won't be able to castle, and then you can have an attack. You can create an attack on the white king. So knight f3, the knight can't take
Because it takes us a bishop and discover check. It's a check, and the queen dies. Yeah.
So the it the move is king e2, and after knight captures on g1, which is good enough, rook captures on g1, and then bishop captures on c3. It's a discovered attack. However, Azumi has been relying on this check on e6 check, king moves, and then after the pawn takes. But if we take stock of what has happened, yes, white is a pawn up, but this is not the kind of pawn you want to be winning. You can see that the queen side pawns are completely ruined, but that actually is a list of
your worries.
yes, it's a list of white's problems. For his rooks are not really participating in the game, and the king, that is the main factor which we'll keep on hammering on. The king is just completely unhappy on this square. So
These two rooks reminding me of one game.
yeah,
Was it yesterday that we wanted to play? Was it the Grunfeld? That the opponent had to bring the two rooks towards the king side. No, towards the queen side. I had to put the two rooks over here, stopping the bishop diagonal. Yeah, I think it was the Grunfeld. Now the question is who played that position. But like I said, when I remember I was talking about it, imagine these two rooks on this side of the board, absolutely doing nothing. They have to still come back to actually be useful. The same thing is going in this position right now. We have the two rooks, not nice, not looking nice at all.
Participating in the game, and queen g5 activating the queen. There are some really nice squares along the fourth rank for the queen to go to. Also, keeping the rook here for maybe one more move, maybe. Okay, f4 was played, sending the queen actually to maybe a good square.
Yep. Now the two pawns are under attack. There's problems. A potential rook e8 also coming. Keeping an eye on the pawn on e3. That's this. No, I understand how the position.
Okay, so king d3 was played. I don't really know if that's
Why?
a good move. Yeah, but trying to protect the pawn on c3, but the king is just too exposed. You can't. The king safety is like one of the most important things when you're playing. So you can't just keep your king in the center like this just because you want to keep a pawn.
Which cannot even be kept.
Yeah. So at this point, I think options should already be showing up. Different ideas should already be showing up for white. For black, I'd already start considering moves like b5, d5 here, and sacrificing some other pawns, but just to open up more lines towards the white king. So these are the moves I'll be considering here. I'll probably be heavy on the move pawn to d5.
D5. So has to bring the second rook down there, but
okay.
It can be easily protected by this by future e4 also.
Yeah, but you're not. Well, I'm not 100% sure, but let's say pawn to d5. It's not necessary that you are. It could be, for example, the queen moves somewhere. I don't know where. Where is it somewhere?
Somewhere could be. We have to keep an eye on that. We have to keep an eye on that pawn. Maybe somewhere should be maybe queen to f7.
Okay.
Just hold on there. Yeah.
Queen f7, and then you already have moves like this.
Then we have e4.
Then we have e4. Then we already have moves like this.
Then we have c4. No. C4. They start falling for queen takes a3 check.
Yeah. So the idea is just to open as many lines as possible. But if we go back, of course, it requires some maybe calculation. But if you don't really want to calculate much, you can just play by hand, play c6, and then play for the pawn to d5 and stuff like that. Uh, the main point was either pawn to d5 or pawn to b5. We just want to open up lines against the exposed black king, while let's go back a bit, while the pieces were still stuck in the corner. Just you can sacrifice as much as possible. The king will most likely die. So let me, yes, so the lines were opened. Okay, so as we may try to close the position a bit with the pawn to e5, but the rooks just quickly switched over to the other side of the board. Also, maybe worth considering, maybe was the move pawn to d4, trying to just open up as many lines as possible. Maybe with the idea of also if the pawn takes
and you have your queen captures.
Okay, so there were options to consider. Rook was played. Pressure was put on the pawn on c3. Okay, this is basic. Pieces are just coming into play. Of course, black is not going to exchange queens with a king as open as this. So I always mention this when sometimes you're not sure if to exchange queens. If your opponent's king is open, all things being equal, if your opponent's king is very open, then you should keep queens on the board. It's just a very simple guideline. I won't call it a rule, but it's just a simple guideline to follow.
Just a principle then.
Yeah. So d4
immediately.
Trying to captures, and this one is just loses a piece.
Check.
Because the king is checked away from this rook, and you just capture the rook.
Rook takes, and this is GG's already.
Yeah. So this was a very instructive game on attacking an exposed king. You should, if you want to use this as example for your students or also for training material, you can go through it and try to see, okay, if I have my opponent's king exposed like this, how I actually do that for some of my students. I give them positions like this, and then tell them, okay, try to find a way to attack the opponent's king, and maybe set them up against an engine or maybe even I will be the one defending the weaker side, and then just try to find a way to attack the opponent's king. Okay, so that's that.
And that was interesting. And another one, it would be a game between the reigning Zone 4.2 defending champion taking up against a whole WGM of Ashruk of Egypt. And let us dive into the game. That was, are we going to call this game an upset?
Well, she's a WGM, higher rated. Definitely, it's an upset. And she probably was going into the game optimistic of her chances of having something, but Torisha seemed to just completely outplay her. Sorry.
Did you just say completely outplay her?
Because
we don't even know that yet. I've not seen the game.
The word I would play was not what I wanted to say. It was just shocked her with the win.
Oh, let's see. So that's how the shock came about.
All right. So e4.
Wait, what? Torisha plays e4.
So probably this was some preparation. Usually Torisha is known as a
D4 player, exactly.
A D4 player, a London player.
Exactly. D4 London, exactly.
Yeah, so probably she came with an idea that, okay, she had seen some of Wafa's game and considered that she had better chances
playing the e4.
Or maybe it was just a complete surprise, trying to use it as a surprise weapon. Either way, let's see how the game goes. E4, E5, very solid. The most solid option. Knight c3. So this is the start of the Vienna game. So is she going to follow it up with f4, or what is going to happen? Okay, let's see. Knight c6, keeping it symmetrical.
Bishop c4.
Bishop c4.
Knight f6. d3.
d3, still keeping the option open of playing the move pawn to f4.
Knight a5.
All right, so Wafa immediately goes for the bishop on b3. This is on c4, which is difficult to hold, and the bishop is an important bishop. So This is a very important idea to keep in mind in positions like this. This bishop, usually in symmetrical e4 e5 lines, this bishop on c4 is usually a bit important. Um, um, Sorry, just give me a moment. Let me cut that call. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, you're back.
So, um, queen to f3 was played. Okay, this I've never seen before. I'm not really sure. Um, Maybe this is an indication that she wants to just capture with the pawn, play bishop somewhere, and then castle queenside. All right. So
Knight takes,
pawn
pawn
take,
takes.
and then pawn to d6. Well, I find this a bit. It's possible. It's possible. I was thinking more like the
The
bishop.
bishop out
Yeah,
first.
it should
Maybe
come
to like
out somewhere.
before.
But maybe this is also good enough. d6, keeping it solid, and then bishop e7. Okay, I'm also a bit curious about the move bishop d2. If you want to castle to the queen side, I thought it would be better to play pawn to h3. I mean, you're already indicating that you're castling queen side, so you don't need to worry about. So pawn to h3, trying to prevent bishop to g4.
Mm-hmm. Temporary annoyance.
Yeah, the pawn is also probably going to go to g4 one day. The knight could come to g3,
And land on f5.
and then the bishop will be on e3, and then you can just castle. And bit strange to me. It's not like it's not a good move. It probably bit strange to me. It's not like it's not a good move. It probably is a very good move. But in the spirit of how she had been playing the position, I was expecting maybe a bit more aggressiveness. However, it's understandable because maybe her castling queen side already with Wafa's king safe in the center. Maybe she was the one who would be in trouble with. Let's just make some moves on the board just to indicate what I'm trying to show. She was one who would be in trouble with moves like pawn to b5, and already black has started the play on
on the queen side.
Yeah, let's just make a move. I'm not really sure what move we're going to make. Let's just make a move. So black is the one who has already started play on the queen side, and maybe this is what she was afraid of.
C5? No, C5? No.
No, I'm just indicating.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just thinking you probably just play C5 directly,
Yeah.
immediately. Just C5.
Yeah, but c5 loses a pawn, no?
You just lose the pawn conveniently.
Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah. So this maybe were some of the things that
Just lose the pawn and you just keep on playing.
she was considering, and then she decided, all right, let's be flexible. It's true, I've been trying to pretend like I was going to castle queenside.
Yes, and now
But now with the reality has changed, I'm going to just
go to king side.
Yeah, go to the king side. Okay.
Of course, and now you see, she was like, okay, now that we know where you're going.
Yeah, now the king knows where it's going. So, but okay, so rook king. But I was thinking, is it possible to play the move
knight to g3, planning knight to f5?
However, one has to be very careful. Okay, so what I would have preferred in this previous move was that, okay, you are going to maybe castle king side, but just pretend for 1 second to see what your opponent's intentions are. Does he intend to play g6? What does he intend to do? But okay. Castles, rook d1. Still not sure which rook belongs on d1. Maybe rook fd1 is good. I still feel pawn to h3 was something to consider here. Just preventing bishop g4 on one more. Okay, so rook fd1. Okay, finally the move pawn to h3 was played. Bishop to e3. We were talking about that since this is actually where the bishop belongs. It's not really clear what he was doing on d2 earlier. Yeah, this b6 move seems a bit unnecessary. Rook d2 was played. Yeah, also here I consider knight g3 an important move. Maybe it's a move worth considering. Another move, maybe it's the move pawn to c6. Is the move?
Pawn to c6?
No. I don't think it's
no.
good. Yeah, I was thinking about pawn to c5, but I think black can play pawn to d5. And Um, this should be good for white. This should be good for black. Sorry, that's what I wanted to say. It should be good for black. All right. So rook d2 looks sensible, trying to double up on the d file.
Mm-hmm.
b5 was played.
Pawn takes.
Pawn takes.
Pawn takes.
And now bishop to g5. Very consistent. So we are seeing again one of the ideas we saw in the Sicilian game.
Yes.
Once again, the idea comes. The d5 square is the square you want to occupy. So by bringing the bishop here, you are threatening to capture the knight. And if you can capture the knight successfully, you're
knight.
So let's just make a move. I'm not really sure what was played in the game.
But let's just make it. I think b4 was played in the game.
Okay, so let's make a move. Bishop times f6, and
bishop
then
takes.
Bring in the
knight in there.
Knight to d5.
Permanent headquarters.
And the knight just stays there. And this knight in the long term, this knight is far superior to
the bishop.
To the bishop. Yeah. So okay, let's see what was played. b4 was played. However, we should see if our idea still works. So the problem here,
bishop takes knight.
Bishop takes knight is met by
pawn takes knight.
Pawn takes knight.
Bishop takes bishop.
But bishop takes bishop.
So what happens?
And now you you what now?
If you take the rook.
If the rook is taken,
then bishop takes the other rook.
Bishop takes this rook.
And now rook takes the bishop or king takes bishop without the two.
Okay.
And now the rook takes the pawn.
And white will be a pawn up,
yeah?
White will be a pawn up in this line. And if the bishop is not taken, if after you take this,
the bishop takes back.
After you take on c3, the bishop just takes back. Then you get the position you wanted to get with
in the
knight
first place.
On d5. And also, if bishop captures, pawn captures, bishop captures, and your opponent's queen captures,
then knight takes.
Then knight can just take.
And we're still landing on the d5 next move.
Yeah, so in all the calculations, it seems like white is happy capturing on f6. So the question now is, what exactly is it that spooked Torriche from capturing the knight on f6, which is the desirable move positionally, because you are trying to fight for the d5 square. I'm not really sure.
What did she do?
What are we missing? Are we missing anything? Bishop captures on f6. Are we missing anything?
We calculated it right. Bishop takes, pawn takes. That's 1-1, right?
Yeah, I don't see anything that we're missing. And pawn takes, of course, is atrocious.
Yeah, pawn takes also. Knight still goes there. So that's even far worse.
So this is I cannot explain this particular move. Knight a4. It has nothing to do with the position, and you can see that the evaluation of the position just changes from plus 0.4 to minus 0.3. Because it's
we're not following the plan.
Yeah, I have no idea what this means. Okay, so queen c7 was played, pawn to c4. Hoping that your opponent will capture on c3, and then you can return the knight to a sensible square. However, luckily, chess is not checkers. Your opponent is not forced to capture you. So, and of course, the opponent did not capture. Yeah, I don't even understand. I don't understand. Okay, so if instead maybe she had played the move pawn to c3, however,
maybe
the a5 pawn will still probably come here and would still cage this knight from getting access to the c3 square. So yeah, I have no idea what c4 is. So c4 was played. It seems like there's a result.
There's a result, I guess. Can you please just click on that? Yes, just click on it. Yes, I think it's a
white wins. The king is on the white square.
White wins. Lina just defeated our opponent. Let me see if the Zoom link is actually bringing this. I mean I think we have a result. That yes, you guys can see it on your screen. That's the Lina from Algeria. And I think does it look like the other board also
Yes.
signing. I think
Yes.
that board is also over. So we'll just quickly do a recap on every other thing that we leave. So Torishe, we're back to Torishe's game. Let's go.
Yeah. So pawn
So
to c4.
yeah, knight takes.
Knight takes using some tactics to capture a free pawn, and then bishop captures, and um, white is just in trouble. It's the only way to put it. White is in a lot of trouble. So the game goes on. It's still the white advantage. I'm sorry, still the
Black
black
advantage.
advantage.
Yeah, bishop here, queen back here.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
But why is the bishop coming there in the first place? Why is the bishop attacking? Oh, the bishop had to leave in order to protect the pawn on. But it's not. It's not. The queen can't take the pawn.
Well,
The queen can't take the f5 pawn
no, the queen can.
because of bishop check. It can't.
Oh, it does a check.
Yes, there will be a discovered check on their queen.
Oh, okay.
So it can't. So there is no point chasing the queen away immediately.
Yeah, I was looking at some move, but maybe the d6 pawn was what was more worrying.
Yes, okay, probably because of the d6 now because we have three pieces now attacking the d6 pawn. Maybe just
Okay, um, so some moves were played. Some typical queen c4 threatening some rook e5 because of the discovered attack on this diagonal. Okay,
yes,
so
that'll be messy.
king steps away, queen d3, queen h4. Suddenly, it seems like tactically the knight is able to get back into the game. This knight that has been sidelined
Mm-hmm.
is able to get back into the game because of if the pawn takes,
The rook takes bishop.
then the rook takes bishop, and because of the active pieces, maybe white is more than okay. Okay, so knight um, knight comes to this square, knight a6,